February. Let's begin our meeting today with call to order and a moment of silent prayer and meditation. Thank you. To begin today, let's take a look at our agenda for today. You can have that sent to you ahead of time in the packet. Are there any revisions to the agenda?
We accept the agenda.
So moved and second. Also, you have in your packet a copy of the minutes from the previous board meeting. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept those.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
And
Second it, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And so we'll begin with Mr. Perry. You'll give us an update on the status of our agency personnel.
At the present time, we have 19 vacant positions within the Pitt County Department of Social Services. Actually, we have 22, but 19 of those positions are frozen. We met with the county manager, I think, last week, and across the county, all positions are frozen for the remainder of this fiscal year. So as positions become frozen, they will not be filled. But this gives you an idea of where our vacant positions are. We have 6 in food and nutrition service, 2 in adult Medicaid, 2 in family and children's services, and we have 3 in the child support enforcement area. And those 3 are enforcement. They're responsible for going to court, enforcing support orders for the absent parents that are not paying. So you can see that it's getting tough. But basically, we know that these positions will not be frozen for the remainder of this year.
So that'll be until, is it October?
July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1st.
We start our new budget year July 1st. Also, we were asked to revert back 2.33% of our reduction from this budget, which came to $211,000 that we had to revert back. And we were able to do that through the lapsed salaries of the vacant positions that we had. And I guess the important thing is from the state perspective that we have not received our budget estimates yet. So it's hard for us to begin the process of doing our budget since we do not know what the revenue will be coming in from the state. So once we get that information, we will have to schedule a budget workshop where we can go through the process of letting you know of where we stand and what we're looking at. It's a possibility that we will have a 2% reduction next year, depending on if the commissioners go revenue neutral. Then we're looking at a 2% reduction in our upcoming budget for 2012, 2013, on top of what we're reducing this year. And then that's
a 2% reduction from current operating
yeah.
expenses.
I remember that we had talked about a plan to handle some of the lack of staff. Are any of these are included in that plan that you had talked about earlier? In terms of how we're going to handle some of the things? You're moving caseloads around and things like that?
We're, at the present time, we're not able to move caseloads around because when you look at 6 vacant positions in food and nutrition service, there's no place to move those cases to. What will happen, though, we would take, as reviews and changes come up, we will ask the ongoing workers to work those cases. But we expect that the client contacts will start lagging because we will not have clients to do that. I mean, we'll not have the workers to do that. In the child support enforcement area, we got 3 vacancies there, and so cases that we scheduled to go to court, there'll probably be a lag time in when we schedule those cases to go to court. So a lot of times that the custodial parent will not get that money timely if the absent parent does not pay, because we will have to get someone else to schedule that case, do the presentation on that case, and take that case to court.
That's going to be very difficult on a lot of the people that we're serving.
Yes, it will.
I would kind of like to know, keep it each month as to how we're standing, especially comparing this year to next year. And I think we need to keep a very close check on if we are falling behind, how much and so forth. And are we meeting the requirements that's been set forth by the federal and the state government pertaining to all of this? Has it had any effect upon child support, Mr. Perry?
Not at the present time, because when you look at the list, we have one retirement that was 12/30/2011, then we have one that just happened January the 22nd, and one that happened February the 1st. So all these are things that just happened in the child support.
All right.
But we know that with those 3 vacancies, we don't have the staff to take those added cases to work. So we know going in that there would be a lag time in getting those cases in, because we got to have someone to schedule the case, do the paperwork for the sheriff to go out and serve the papers.
I'm sure that the county, Melody, I hope you know, kind of stay in contact with them to make sure, if you will, please.
One other thing. Will the people that maybe are not getting their check for other services then?
They can come in and apply for work first, employment services. Some of them probably are receiving food and nutritional service, and they probably are receiving Medicaid. But when you look at the child support, they'll help them to, if you're looking to pay your rent, utilities, and you dependent upon that money to come in, and then for some reason the absent parent stops paying, then that's when we have to do our enforcement to get it in court.
Because, just what I'm thinking is, if we're looking at these positions not being open for a couple of months, and the non-custodial parent falls a couple of months behind, that's going to be very hard on the custodial parent to take care of their rent, food, and other things.
All right, now, we know, of course, that the sheriff is involved very much in child support, and there are 5 of those that work with you.
Right.
Is that not correct, Mr. Perry? It has not affected any of this type of activities, has it?
Not at the present time.
Okay, that's good.
I guess
Because
one-
that's very important, I think, that the other ones that are out there doing that,
They're the one that's serving the papers.
right, that legwork, so to speak. Okay.
But Eugene, one of the things is that they won't be able to get those papers to serve.
Two.
Well,
They won't be able to get
Got to
that.
make sure that they do, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We don't want nothing to interfere with that.
And if you see our priorities, we have put the child support 2nd, 3rd, and 4th behind our CPS. So they just for additional information.
What are you doing to are you getting complaints from the public? Because what concerns me is that the staff is really being worked that we have. And so if the public is calling in and coming and all that, what kind of complaints are you getting? Because you got to be getting some with all these many vacancies.
We get, the majority of our complaints come from food and nutritional service.
Okay.
And it basically around when their EBT benefits are not put on their cards, then they're calling wanting to know what happened to the case. They brought in the paperwork, it didn't get processed. So that's where the majority of our calls coming from.
That's feeding the children,
Yeah,
too.
I think, Mr. Perry, we need to stress the importance of all of our employees to work for some ways that we can improve the situation, maybe bring in additional funds, or any kind of way that we can help, because we know that this year's bad, but next year's going to be even worse. We know that, and we might as well face it.
I guess one of the questions, how would we know? How do you know? And I don't mean individually specific, but how do you know if your service level is declining as a result of not having enough people?
We know because I start getting clients calls, which I get quite a few clients calls. The supervisor will start receiving calls from individuals not getting the benefits. And then in the child support, we have a child support call center, and they receive over 9,000 calls a month just from Pitt County alone, that people calling in about the child support cases. So that's an average in a given month that call center in Everett, that's how many calls they average on a month from Pitt County dealing with child support. So we're lucky that we have that call center in Everett to take those calls. But now with those vacant caseloads, we'll be start getting calls because clients will be calling one to know that the absent parent is not paying when that case is scheduled to court, and what are you planning on doing about it?
So that, to me, would be what we would be kind of, is just the 5 or 6 indicators that tell you that, for whatever reason, budgetary or frozen positions or whatever, that
That's what we need to hear from you.
if it's public service calls, the number served, the volume of
Yeah.
call versus processed, something that just is indicative of whether or not there's just simply not the resource to adequately disperse the resources provided to us, or that we're mandated to do so. That, I think we look at it
Yeah.
quarterly already in terms of volume. Maybe we just need to add those calls coming in and that kind
Right,
of thing as a
yeah.
piece of
I
it.
think the other thing is that, is there an increase of lack of non-custodial parents paying during that time?
When,
And
when
have
we
that
go,
in the monthly?
when we
Are we
go
getting that
to our,
monthly?
when we go to our goals and objectives, I have something in there about child
Okay.
support, and we'll talk about that.
Any other questions around, Mr. Mayor?
That was my question, and you identified it as an identifier. And when I was saying benchmarks, you already have the phone system. When we talk about these critical areas, as we sit here and discuss, in your data, your phone calls, are they prioritized? I mean, are they, when I say prioritized, are they divided up? Are there sub-benchmarks in that? For example, if we know that food and nutrition is likely to be a great big issue now, or child support with these, does that information go beyond the number of phone calls we got per month? And my question would be, maybe not to answer that right this minute, but would that not be the kind of benchmarks that you'd want to bring to the board? We had
We
these
have-
3, they're frozen, and now this area of child support, for example, is having 5 times more calls, even though that might not be from 9,000 to 40,000 calls a month, but in that area, we'd know we have trouble. So my, I guess, suggestion is, do we have any of that data?
All our extensions, we can pull out the number of calls coming in, so we have the capability to track.
Wouldn't
that
we
number of
want
calls.
that? Don't you think that would be a good benchmark, so that with all the frozen, if, for example, the supercritical things like child support and those type things, that if we had just that next level, you've got the major part of it, but if we had that next level, then we might
Okay.
have a different, slightly different look at it.
I guess,
Okay.
and the big question is, we get all this information, so what? What can we do, and what is our obligation to do with the information, aside from knowing it and having you prove that you know it? That's one piece, I guess, but we need to make sure we're aware of our advocacy opportunities to help fix the problem as you identify them and say, I'm concerned particularly about this particular area. Then that's when I think we can drill on that, we can focus on that, we can talk to whomever we need to help push that. But I don't want you just
Yeah.
spending your time
Yeah.
mining the data. We need to make sure we understand what we can do with that information.
I think at the present time, just to make you aware that as a board member, you might start receiving calls from citizens that out in the community. So this is one way that you're aware that we do have these vacancies, that these caseloads are going unattended. So when you talk to the citizens, you're well aware of what's going on in the Department of Social Service. Not because we do not want to return the calls or do not want to work your case, it's just that we have a shortage of staff.
And at this point, there's none of these shortages that concern you in terms of meeting the mandated requirements for service delivery.
At the present time, we are able to, but I think in food and nutrition service, we will start seeing a drop in
Potential
service
problem.
delivery. Because we're looking at 1/3 of our cases being vacant, caseload being vacant.
So at least in that area, to Mr. Mayo's point, that might be a place
Yeah.
where we would really want to see the benchmark and the trended delivery over time, so that we are properly able to advocate for the resources needed. Okay, any other questions around agency personnel? All right, great. We do have several budget amendments that will require board action today, so maybe we can put these all together and do these as one action from the board, please, Mr. Perry.
Okay, we have 5 budget amendments. Parent partners, $68,972. Energy neighbor to neighbor, $357. We have additional funds for the crisis intervention program, $470,297. Low-income energy assistance program, an extra $114,819. And Ms. Gwen Burns will talk a little bit later about the low-income energy assistance program. And we have donations from Greenville Utilities, neighbor to neighbor, and $8,000 for 5 budget amendments. None of these budget amendments require any county dollars.
All right, we have several budget amendments before us. Do I have a motion to accept these, please?
I make a motion that we accept these budget amendments.
I second those.
Any questions, concerns? All in favor? So carried. Thank you, sir. We also have several reports today we received from the team here, the beginning of which is around the expanded food and nutrition education program. Ms. Monica Chapman and Mr. Mitch Smith. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Extension, and I want to take just a few minutes and to spotlight one of our programs. So often when you hear the words North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, you might think about farmers or people who have home gardens or our 4-H program or family and consumer science education. But today we want to talk about FNEP and ways that maybe Cooperative Extension and the Department of Social Services might work together to bring this program to those who truly need information related to nutrition and how to spend home budgets. I'm pleased today to be joined by my colleague, Ms. Monica Chapman. Monica is an FNEP program assistant with our program, and she works with the adult component. So she's going to make a brief presentation for you today about our FNEP program. Monica.
Hello, everyone. I work with the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, which is FNEP. I work with the adults, and we target the limited resource population. It is a federally funded program for families and children, and is offered through the Pitt County Cooperative Extension. We focus on helping families and youth improve behaviors and dietary intake recommended for the dietary guidelines, which used to be my pyramid, but now it is my plate. So we go off of the guidelines from my plate. Participants increase their ability to select and buy foods that meet the nutritional needs of their families, gain new skills in food preparation, food storage, and food safety. They learn to better manage their food budgets, including the use of food stamps and WIC vouchers. There are a total of 9 lessons that each participant must attend to graduate, and now it's actually 6 lessons that each participant must attend to graduate. And there is the introduction lesson where each participant has to fill out a survey. We get a 24-hour food recall, so the participant will give us a list of foods that they've eaten in the past 24 hours. And we'll do a calorie intake and measure their sodium intake, their carbohydrate intake, and once we get the information back, we'll give the results to them and kind of show them how they can improve in eating healthier. Plan Know What's for Dinner. This lesson targets planning ahead and not trying to hurry up and eat fast food or trying to get something quick and on the limb. Fix It Safe teaches how to prep food safely, store food safely, and cook temperatures at a correct temperature. Shop, Get the Best for Less, including healthy snacks. This lesson is really important, especially when it comes to budgeting. We do target the limited resource, so A lot of our participants are food stamp recipients, and I hear it all the time. I don't get enough food stamps, and you know, for someone else it could be plenty, but because they don't know how to budget or they don't know how to shop, they don't know how to spend. They could be spending on snacks or, you know, the pricier food, but we teach them how to shop by the unit price instead of the overall price, so they could have enough money or food stamps left in the month so they won't have to come out of pocket. Shop for value, check the facts, teaches them how to read the food label. Fix it fast, eat at home. This is another lesson geared towards not eating fast food all the time and preparing foods at home. Choosing to move more throughout the day includes lessons on physical activity, trying to get them to be more physically active. Choosing more fruits and vegetables, and making smart drink choices. Each session will last approximately an hour. We have the introduction, which will go into the components of the lesson and what we talked about before. We have food preparation. Each time I meet with them, we cook, and they are allowed to taste whatever it is that the recipe that we cook. And then we have the lesson summary. So we have skill builders, and in our program, each participant will take home a skill builder every time we meet. We have measuring cups. We have the dry and the liquid measuring cups. We have this bottle sanitizer, which I'll teach them how, instead of going out buying the expensive cleaning products, how to mix Clorox and water so they can make it themselves. We have a measuring spoon. We have a cutting board, a calendar that is filled with recipes, a magazine for parents and their recipes included in this cookbook, and different tips on how to store food, a cookbook, and a shopping list pad, so when they go to the grocery store they can use their shopping list pad. And to plan, we have a magnetic planner that they can stick on their refrigerator so they can plan ahead, so they won't have to try to, at the last minute, try to find something to eat for their family. So after the 6 lessons, each participant will receive a certificate and a cookbook. And for Pitt County, you do have the handout, but there has been a 98% improvement in their diet. 76% of FNET participants showed improvement in their resource management skills, meaning they're budgeting more. And 85% of FNET participants have showed improvement in their nutrition practices. This is a really good program. It's free. They don't have to pay not one dime. The skill builders are given to them for free, and most participants enjoy it. They're kind of weary at first. They really don't know why I'm here or what am I going to do, but once they get into the program, they love it and they enjoy coming. So
I might mention too that I spoke with Mr. Perry, I guess at the end of the year, and we had some bits of brainstorming about ideas on maybe how this program might fit within the Department of Social Services, and he invited us to come today to share this with you. And this program is brought to Pitt County in part by NC State University and the Pitt Memorial Hospital Foundation, so that enables us to deliver this program through the outstanding efforts of Monica and also Shalina Bonner, who's another program assistant on our staff too.
Thank you. I have a question. Of the 135 families that participate, these are from Pitt County.
these are.
What percent of that are the ones that we are sponsoring for food and nutrition services? 135 of how many?
I don't have the data with me, but I can assure you that it's more than 90%. They just changed the guidelines. And to participate in this program, you have to receive food stamps or WIC or Medicaid, or your child has to get free or reduced lunch.
But the ones who receive those services are not required to participate in this
No,
program.
not required.
No one is required.
So
This isn't
we serve
mandatory
how many-
at all.
We
do you have how
serve,
many it's in the
we
list.
serve over 15,000 households, which 23,000 individuals, so we,
Right. So 15,000 households, and there's 135 of those participating in the program. But we can't make it a requirement to participate in this program. I mean, if you're getting these kinds of results, obviously it's critically important.
Right
that we-
now, I'm working with Strive, and a lot of the participants there are with the Work First program. And on average, I may get about 10 participants a month from Strive. But actually going out and doing the legwork and just randomly getting people to come in is kind of difficult.
And
So
what-
most of these are already organized groups and agencies.
what we have just partnered with the Ag Center to start this program. So we're sharing this information through our food stamp staff, for having that information available to give to the clients so they can have that contact information.
Yeah, that's we have a population, that's somewhat captive to these kinds of programs because we're supplying resources. And it would seem as though there would be a way to use some of the metrics to influence choice and all those kind of things as you're doing here among a population but I'm guessing here you say we can't make it a requirement.
No, we can't make it a requirement, but what we're doing, encouraging our clients that there's a resource out there that can help you better manage your EBT card so you can get the most out of what you shop and buy. Because we have a lot of clients that before the months run out, before they get their next EBT benefits, they have already spent their allotment. So this way we can encourage them that you need to try to manage those food stamps better. This is a way that you can do that.
I have several questions, Monica. Number one is, have you worked, asked Mideast what help that they can give you money-wise and so forth, Midge? You know what Mideast is. They have a lot of money. They do things such as this. All you have to do is to look at this and know how important it is. What she's doing helps you control your weight, your diet. You know, among minorities, well, not only minorities, but whenever you're overweight, you've got diabetes. But it seems to run, of course, a great deal monitoring our minority population. I don't need to say that, but it's true. And therefore, if they watch what they're eating, and you're right, you go to the grocery store and watch what people buy. They spend so much money on junk, nothing but junk. That's not good for them anyway. Shorten their life, but they don't quite understand it. And what we need to do is to break that up with daddy and mama, get them started, let them work with the kids and get them started. Now I have some 2 or 3 questions I want to ask. In each of your classes, about how many do you have, and what is the age limit? I mean, the ages of these that you have in your class.
Well, I work with the adult component of FNEP, and my population, as long as you're a parent, so you can be 14. If you have a child, I can work with you. But 19 and under, my colleague Shalina Bonner, she works with the youth. She actually goes out into the school system and teaches the nutrition component of FNEP. But
That's good.
with the adults, as long as you have a child, you're considered an adult.
Yeah. Well, about what is the age? Do you have, are they 40 or 50 or 30? I know
It varies because
varies.
I have some grandparents who are raising their
Oh, you know.
grandkids and they come to.
I learned this as a teacher. You've got grandparents that probably are more influential in many kids than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know that, and I know it, of course. And so we don't need to leave them out. We need to bring them very strongly in And most of the time, these grandparents love these kids. Let me say that to you. They love them evidently more than the parents do sometimes.
And I tend to find that with grandparents, if you let them know that this is really beneficial for their kids, they'll follow it.
Yeah.
They'll do whatever it takes to get their grandkid on the right path of eating healthier.
Are you following it up in any kind of way as to what the reason? How long have you been doing this?
Since 2008.
Oh, I see you've been doing it several years. Have you followed it up and to see what kind of success, if you're having, and how is it affecting the?
We don't have any follow-up procedures. What we do, the organization that we work with, we train them to follow up on the participants. Most of the people I work with is done through an organization. So we train and give them the skills they need as a leader to make sure they're following through. And if they have any other questions or they need my help, they could give me a call.
It looks like to me the hospital, of course, the hospital is involved in it. As Brian knows, if you've got your foundation, that's where most of the money comes from. So, but this is a health issue, and it's like to me, you ought to be able to get a lot of help. But Mideast, I would certainly, I'm on the Mideast Commission, and the next time we have a meeting, I will certainly mention and try to find out what.
That would be great.
Yeah, that they can do. And I don't know about Modern Community Action. I don't know how they are involved in things such as this, Mitch, but very possible there. You might need to contact Mr. McGowan pertaining to, I believe he's on that.
Certainly. Certainly.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I was wondering, what kinds of things can we do to encourage the people that we serve to take advantage of your services?
Well, I don't have, I guess for privacy reasons, I don't have a list of people that I can contact to say, hey, this program is out here. So if you have a newsletter or anything of that sort where you could advertise FNIP is here, it's free, just come, show up. And for a limited time, we have a grant where you have a choice of a skillet, a crock pot, a griddle, or a blender. I just thought about that. And it's free. It's free of charge. And that's free is a really good word.
Yeah, it's a very good word.
A lot of people like
Sure.
to hear free.
I would take it to get one.
Yeah.
So if you have any means of media outlet where you can let them know that it's here.
You are doing that.
Yeah.
You are
Right
doing that.
now, we've got a television. Beverly, how could they get on the government channel pertaining to this? So the short,
A short presentation.
yeah, just real short. How come go about
If
doing it?
Mitch and Monica work with Kiara and her staff.
You
we
do
can get
that.
Something out there.
And that
One of the
You
one
tell
of-
them I sent you too.
Yeah.
We'll do something.
So one of the reasons this is interesting and why I think we're all so supportive is obviously, and for the viewing public, part of we do this to give you venues to talk about these kind of things and make sure people understand what's available, but also to educate the public. Eastern North Carolina in particular, obesity is a problem for us as a population, and so with all the work that goes into that, you see that we, through these funds, are supporting more than 15,000 households, but less than 1% are taking part in services that can help stretch those resources to go further for those families, as well as make them available in the future because they're not as sick, they're not as predisposed to illness and things that would end up consuming huge amounts of those resources down the road. So when the public thinks about this, there's a fixed amount of resources that we are all contributing to as a community and as a group, and how we use them in programs like this allows us to keep them going longer, whether it's daycare or whether it's food and nutrition services or whether it's the services to fund health care for the population. These decisions to attend and participate and follow recommendations determine whether the same individuals would even have these resources down the road. So it's critically important that anything that helps us with the overall health of the population, we maximize its resources. And I would even challenge the group and our management team to set a benchmark of what % of the people we serve with funds to help support food and nutrition services, take part in and realize the benefits of, as you've listed here, a program like this that can aid in prevention activities and reduce obesity and those kind of things.
Well, I can get the data for you for how many participants actually receive food stamps, and I don't have we don't have database for that select group where we can see what their actual numbers are, but most of the numbers are for everyone. But I can definitely get you the
I
numbers.
just think it's
for
a
how
great
many.
opportunity to set a goal, if it's 5%, if it's 10% of the people that we are in constant contact with, providing resources that are dietary resources, of those individuals, that we set a goal and say, we want it to be 15%, we want it to be 20%, because if we do that and set a flag and then hold ourselves accountable for that goal, we'll design a program to marry your programs with the ones that are here to make sure that we're doing it. So setting a target's important, not just reacting to what did or didn't happen, but saying this is how much we want to have happen and make that a priority. And it'll pay off for us in the long run on the health of our population.
How many people, you're at, I just picked the one, you have 135 people?
Now,
Or more than that now?
135.
Family.
That's
Family.
actually 135 parents, including their household.
Mhm.
So
Do you have a number of households that you're aiming to serve or that you
We-
can't handle?
right now, 135 is the minimum.
Is the minimum?
Actually, minimum.
Okay.
And this resource is here. Some people know about it, some people don't, but it's difficult
Mhm.
trying to
the
get
word out.
people in.
Mhm.
You know, this isn't a concern for them. You know, as long as they see themselves as happy, you know, no matter what's going on internally, it's not a concern for them.
But
I'm sorry. One of the things I was thinking is, since the hospital foundation is involved, is there something that the hospital might be able to do? And I'm just thinking about, with the number of people that are getting our services, that are patients in the hospitals, a possible way might be, I hope my social worker friends don't yell at me, but to maybe have them help out and give this information out to the patients, as an example.
I think there's a host of ways to link it together. I think there are requirements to the program you listed earlier that people have to meet to be
Yeah,
eligible.
and Medicaid is one of them. I don't think we have it here, but I know someone who lived in Raleigh, who her child was overweight, and her pediatrician actually contacted a social worker, and a social worker came out to her house and told her, you need to get this straight because she's overweight, she's going to have health problems, and so forth and so on. So they actually made her attend classes because they felt like, I'm not sure what the term is, but she was doing harm to her daughter. So her social worker had to actually follow up to make sure that she was purchasing the right food, that she was, you know, actually feeding her daughter healthy foods and not a lot of junk and things like that. So in Wake County, they have a program set up for something like that where the social worker would actually make sure.
There are ways, I'm certain that there are ways we can use the information we have about who is in need. There are ways that we can design the model for how we interact with those individuals to make sure we can get you more than 0.9% of the opportunity. We just need to make it a priority, and we need to say that this is something we as a social services group want to do. To make sure we can stretch the dollars longer. And for the public, this helps you not only get healthier, this helps you not only lose weight, but it helps you keep resources. It helps you maximize resources, and that's an important thing. It's a way of giving more resources to those same individuals. But how we package that, how we explain that, and help people come to understand that is something we need to be intentional about, not not just a one-off because they'll hear it or maybe not hear it, but we have the opportunity to continuously reinforce that message, and I think we should design a system, at least in Pitt County, to help us take care of these individuals that we're serving.
And Mitch and Monica will be presenting to our staff meeting on February 28th to all DSS staff, so that they will be hearing about it and then using it for the different clients that they come in contact with.
And tying on to Mr. James's request about getting it on the public access channel, Kiara Jones also does a radio show, which, I mean, I was on it this morning, but I know the folks before me were public health employees talking about wellness and making better food choices. So I think this might be a very, very timely subject maybe to follow up on Kiara's next radio show. And I know that reaches a population that may not have access to cable TV. So it's another way to reach probably the population that this is targeted to serve.
And we can, I would imagine, we have people interacting with every client of those 15,000 families in some way, shape, or form. This could become a standard part of giving resources, is to make sure we give not only the resources, but we give these tools to help them maximize them and explain that to them during that process. But it's probably not a part of our operating protocol and procedure today, and that's what I'm asking, if we can do that.
And we will also put it on our website, so it'll be out there for clients that contact
that's
DSS website, so it'll be out there as well.
Mr. Chairman, what it boils down to is priority. We monitor has got to drill into these people that this is your priority for this child. If you want this child to be healthy, then do your duty, take some responsibility, because that child's not going to do it by itself. It wants to keep right on eating. You know, we know how a lot of people love to eat. So we need to take and stress the importance of priority.
Very good.
Every time that you can pertaining to that food.
Well, thank you all for
Thank
your
you.
suggestions. We would take these to heart, and we look forward to this continued relationship. And we expect good things.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Monica. Thanks for coming today. All right. I guess one takeaway for us would be to bring this issue back and talk about how this program and others that deal with food and nutrition, healthy choices, and those kinds of things, how we make them part of our protocol and practice. Because I bet there are other programs you already have that do some of the same kind of work. It's not to say this is the only way that we're getting at that, but it might be worth a conversation briefly to understand how all those programs work together and help influence the decisions of a captive audience of individuals receiving services from us.
Sounds like Wake County is already maybe a few steps
Yeah,
what
there
we're
should be a
ahead
way
on
to do
that.
it, part of
So
protocol.
there must be a way that they know it.
Okay. Next, we have a report on the LEAP program. Ms. Burns?
Okay. The Low Income Energy Assistance Program, or LEAP program, it provides a one-time vendor payment to assist with heating bills. This program started in Pitt County December 1, 2011. At that time, we had a target population that we served from December 1, 2011 until January 31st, 2012. And that target population was elderly, 60 and above, and disabled persons who were receiving services through the Division of Aging and Adult Services. We took applications on that population during that time frame. February 1st, 2012, the program opened to everyone. And at this point, anyone can apply for heating assistance. The target population of the elderly and disabled, they can also still apply during this time frame. It's just that those first 2 months focused on them, but they can still apply at this time if they did not have the opportunity to take advantage of getting an application during that time period. At the beginning of the program, we were allotted $276,864. Once the program opened up to everyone, on February the 3rd, we received an additional 114 $114,819 that Mr. Perry spoke of earlier. So for a total for the program at this point is $391,683. Okay. To date, we have roughly spent $197,743, and we have around $193,940 left. So we still have left a little less than half of this money at this time. Applications are still being taken. As I said, anyone can apply at this point, and applications will be taken until March 31st or until the funds are exhausted. The program is first come, first served basis. To date, we have taken applications on 1,153 people. And we will continue that until the funds are exhausted or until March 31st. The program is located at 1717 West 5th Street, and we are taking applications Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The contact person for the heating program is Sybil Meeks, and her phone number is 902-1288.
All right. Any questions from Ms. Burns?
So we got some extra money,
Yes.
and I think the original amount that we had last year, was it 500,000?
Well, last year, the program was different last year.
Oh.
Anybody could apply, and I think we spent last year around $1.7 million for the program. But this year, we were allocated a certain amount. And once we have spent that amount, then the program is over. It's different this year.
And I remember we had talked about a lot of the advertising and getting the word out
Yes.
through different sources that we had used. How's that work?
Well, I did a spot on Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 12. I did the radio program that Melanie spoke of with Kiara. I sent out 2,700 newsletters through the Council on Aging newsletter. And we spread the word. We got out there and we really did spread the word. We put it on the DSS website. So we did a lot of things to get the word out there. And one of the indications that I think is that when the program opened in December for the elderly and disabled, we had long lines of people waiting.
Okay.
When the program opened February the 1st, we had folks, we had long lines of folks waiting. The lobby was full, so I know the word is out there. One other thing that we're doing to try to help folks is that if they come into social services in our other social services site over at the Human Service Center, and they're needing help with their utilities or needing assistance, then our employees over there are taking applications for this heating program over at the other building also, so that clients won't have to leave from that building and come over here to get an application done. They can do an application at the other building.
That's really good. It seemed like you really done a really good job at getting the word out.
Any other questions?
And we are encouraging people to come in and please apply for heating assistance, because we want the funds exhausted prior to March 31st.
And one more time, just can you tell people how to contact you, Ms. Burns?
Yeah.
Can,
The person to contact who is overseeing the program again is Sybil Meeks, and she's at 902-1288, or they could contact me, Gwen Burns, at 902-1124.
Great. All right, thank you so much. Mr. Perry, you want to review the goals and objectives?
If you look at page 26, where we're talking about workforce employment services, under average percentage of former workforce participants who remain employed for at least 12 months, we have 62 of 71 clients remain employed for at least 12 months. So we were at 80.67%, and our average so far is 87%, and we were looking at 80%. So our workforce employment service is working with clients to get them into employment and for them to stay in that employment. So 62 out of 71 people remain employed for 12 months or longer is great. On page 27, where we were talking about food and nutrition services benefit, between July the 1st and December the 31st, we took 11,107 applications. We actually took 11,337 applications, and we disposed of 11,178 applications timely, and we had 159 applications that went past due in our food and nutrition services program. On page 28, in our Medicaid program, in the MAD, we processed 1,371 applications, and of that, 1,233 were done timely. We had 138 that was past due. In our other category, we processed 6,418 applications, and of that, 5,761 were processed within the time frame. We talked about child support, and with the vacancies coming up, at the present time, we have 8,437 cases, and of those cases, we have 7,443 that's under a support order. And these are the cases that our enforcement workers are working with to make sure that these individuals pay according to their support obligations. So far, we have collected $6,799,642. This on page 30. We're at 50% of our goal. We set the goal for $13,150,000. We're at 50% of that goal, but with the 3 positions vacant, we don't know whether or not the next 6 months, whether or not we'll be able to meet that goal. But one good thing that we have set off coming in, where people will be filing their income tax return, and if they are behind in their child support obligations, then that money will go towards their child support obligations. So hopefully with the set off, we'll still be able to make that $13,150,000 that will come into Pitt County to help the citizens that are receiving child support service. So we're at 50% at the present time. And we will try to maintain it, but with the vacancies and everything, we just have to see what happens.
Any questions from Mr. Perry? I want to just make sure I understood something correctly. The percent of revenues collected, take page 22 as an example. So when we talk about the ability to continue to provide mandated services or ensure that they are being provided, in this case, the first and second quarter, they are cumulative percentages. So at the end of the second quarter, you actually are achieving your 50%.
42, let's see.
You have 18.24 plus 41.25. Are you accumulating that to the 95% goal?
We probably would not make the 95% goal, because with a lot of our revenues come in with positions as well. So when those vacant positions, they bring in revenues. So we'll not be bringing in no revenues because those positions are vacant.
And so under your objective to ensure compliance, you have number of providers monitored, and there's none for the second quarter.
Right.
Is that a function of not having the people to do the monitoring?
This is in our daycare program. So we have people in our daycare program, but they just have not, they did not do the monitoring for the second quarter. We're down 1 caseworker in our daycare program, so we only have to.
So it is a function of
Right.
not having the people.
Right.
So when I was going through this list, I was looking for what is it that's not on target, not what is on
Yeah.
target. And the things that aren't on target, are they a function of the budget constraints? You also on page 25. The annual percent of all Pitt County families referred who became stably housed, it says 0. I don't know if that's of what number, but are any of these indicative of a problem we need to be concerned about at this point?
No. That is in our homeless prevention rapid rehousing grant, so that's grant. So they probably will pick up the figures in the next quarter.
Okay. And then one last one on page 28, because I would imagine it's a kind of a bigger one. This one speaks to, is perhaps an indicator of Mr. Mayo's earlier question. Is this an indicator of it says the annual percentage of applications processed timely for medical assistance to the disabled. These are less than the 90% targets.
Right.
And is that an indicator of
That's an indicator of the
not having the
position.
people?
Right.
Because that is a mandated requirement.
That's a mandate that 90% are done timely. And if you working at 90%, 91%, all it takes is for you to drop below 90% in 1 month. We'll pull that whole quarter figure down for that month, which we did. We failed 1 month, so that dropped everything down for that quarter.
But now that these positions are frozen, if the problem was you didn't have the people and you have frozen positions, you don't expect this to come back up to 90%?
We are trying to stay at 90%, which is hard, but we're still trying to make sure we can stay at 90.
What's the repercussion?
Well, if you fail 3 out of 6 months, then what the state would do, they would convene a special team to come in, look at the county, see what's going on.
And I guess suppose they find out the reason that we're below is that we're short-staffed.
They would not put any money into.
They don't make us more short-staffed.
They would tell you what the issue is, what you need to do, but as far as putting money in to correct the problem, they will not. This is part of that Alexander versus Florida court order that been since 1974, and the changes that they made in it. So each month we get a report card which tells us how well we're doing.
That's a report, that's up to Pitt County, what you're saying, though.
Staffing is up to
Fix
Pitt
is up to
County.
Pitt.
That's right.
And I guess the reason I'm asking the question is we earlier discussed concerns about these mandated
Yeah.
programs and how would we know if you weren't able to
Yeah.
deliver them on the basis of staffing? Well, you've just told us for a quarter we did not hit the benchmarks that are required for us. And if it's also a function of not having the people, how many quarters do we intend to let go by and then just allow someone else to come tell us what the problem was? And we need
Yeah.
to be thinking ahead.
Yeah, I guess the thing though is if that we know the problem is a lack of staff, and they say the reason that this didn't happen is because of a lack of staff, and we say we know that, and then they say, well, even though we know that, we're gonna not give you we're not gonna give you this money. That's makes it really more difficult, and there's nothing that we can do in that sense. At least I think there's not. Maybe there is something that we could do.
Has this happened before, though? Has it happened in the past? Does it happen once in a while?
Yeah, every now and then we
Oh,
fail.
okay, well, that's all.
But not for 3 quarters though, right?
No.
Because it's 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
3 months is
We've-
the magic
We
number.
failed 1 out of the 6 months.
1 out of the 6 months.
And that's not that bad, but
No, no,
it's,
so we got 2 weeks.
Well, we got this next 6 months, so.
okay.
Well, yeah, and my question is, if you use history as an indicator of the future, you also had fluctuations in the staffing problem, but we just froze the staffing. So
Yeah.
whatever
We'll
he's
see
got
what-
now, it's constant, and
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
if the problem is related to that, then it won't change if that's the only thing we're trying to change is add more staff, because we're not going to do that.
Right.
That's why I think we would want a benchmark so that Eugene, as commissioners and as everybody, not to say that you're gonna unfreeze one and not the others, but if there is a critical and you're fixing to lose all the funds, I would certainly think the people at county management level and commissioner level would want to know that
We'll do a
ahead of the committee coming in.
I also think you have to look at the months that were involved, and this is the month with the most holidays and least work days of any quarter of the year, because you have Thanksgiving and Christmas. And how much does that impact the ability to process the paperwork? Because you have people taking off a week at Christmas or the week at New Year's because they have kids out of school, so they took. So did we also almost hurt ourselves because we were allowing our staffs to be on vacation? So that, not to presume that it's going to continue, it could continue because it could just be field position related, but I think you also have to look at number of work days in this quarter as compared to other quarters.
My assumption is this is an indicator you measure monthly, right?
Right.
So maybe we should put this as one on the monthly indicator list to review at every meeting, just to say, so that we're not just looking at the vacancies, but we're looking at it in light of service delivery. I was just looking for what is an indicator that you've already got, and this looks like one to me that we don't have to create a new benchmark. The benchmark is 90%. We've got history. You could go back and look at the last December, January history and decide whether or not that's a normal thing that you would.
Right, and if it was the October that pulled it down, then maybe it is staffing, but if it was December that pulled it down, how much of that is related to the fact that we had all those days off and sort of a lower level of productivity to start with?
More days off than you've experienced in the last Decembers.
In the other months of this year, in terms of...
Yeah, no, I mean, but if you went back to December, to check that theory, you could go back and look at previous Decembers and
Right.
say,
And
is December a
always
month
bad
that we
month?
don't usually hit the target?
December is not, and I don't know what month it was between October, November, December. I did not look at what month it was in the quarter, but I can pull out that month to see what month it was. I can compare the last
Same
October,
period.
November. I can compare those and see what. Yeah, we
I
got it.
think that's the benchmarks
Yes.
that we talk about, and if we can just review it, it won't be an exploratory trip every
Yeah.
Well,
time we
yeah,
approach it. It'll
I-
show us, oh, there really is a trend, and it wasn't maybe what could be called a seasonal fluke or that.
I think it's important, and also, again, consistent with the notion of us making sure that we are monitoring those programs that maybe cannot achieve what's required of them.
I can pull that information, so
All
that's
right.
not a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. You want to give us a brief update on your...
Okay, in the director's report, we have a program compliance monitoring report for adult services. We have been released from our monitoring, so our corrective action plan. So adult service did what they needed to do to come from under corrective action plan and that. And the work support strategies, this is a new concept that the state is looking at, streamlining access and strengthening families. We have a lot of individuals that receive assistance in more than one program. And what they have to do is, if I'm receiving family and children Medicaid, food and nutritional service, then there's a possibility that those review dates do not align up. So I could end up coming in 1 month for a food and nutritional service redeterm, then the next month for family and children Medicaid. So they're looking at how can they streamline the process, help the clients, so when they come in, they can do everything at one time. And all the processes will line up, which means they will have to look at the different income limits, the different reserve limits, to line up the different programs, so that regardless of what program that you come in for, that you could have one individual take your application, do your review, and you would not have to repeat the same story 2 and 3 times to different individuals. So you can tell your story one time, get what you need. So that is something that the state is looking at in their work support strategies, so we're working on that. We're in trauma-informed practices. We're one of the 8 counties that will be working with the state and that. What it is, when children come into Child Protective Services, we do not recognize that there are traumas that they carry along with them. There are things that they observe, watch happen, that have an impact on the way they relate to other individuals. So sometimes they might need mental health services to help them overcome the barriers. So with the trauma-informed therapy, we'll be looking at that with the 8 pilot groups, and we'll be working with the state as one of the 8 pilots on that. And we had a FNS, Employment and Training Program Compliance Review. That was done last Friday. I haven't had a chance to get with the staff on what the results of that was.
This is not implemented yet.
No, not implemented yet.
Okay, because I think that mental section is very good for the children. That you know.
Yeah.
All right, thank you,
And
Mr.
our
Perry.
next meeting is March the, oh, Monday. I will send it out through email. I got your email addresses. March the 12th.
Yes, you got the email address.
So I'll send it out through email to remind you before you get the board packet.
All right. Okay, any other business we need to attend to today?
And
We
since,
have a need
Is
to
a
go
motion
into,
to adjourn in order?
now
Is
we
there a
got,
closed
Yes,
session?
we got a
we
closed
have to
session.
go into closed session.
So I guess I need to read this thing then.
I had that problem a few months ago when Brian was off.
It is the policy of this state that closed sessions shall be held only when required to permit a public body to act in the public interest as permitted in this section. A public body may hold a closed session and exclude the public only when a closed session is required. Also, item number 1, to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the laws of this state or of the United States are not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes.
May I have a motion to go into
For
closed
a
session?
motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Board stands in closed session.